Good morning, everyone. We are live. I have just opened the doors. Good morning. Well, good morning, Mr. Decker, Linda, Sandy. I love seeing faces come in the doors. I always tell you this, Terry, when you join me. It's kind of my favorite part. It's like if you have a party and is anyone going to show up?
Well, yeah, but
So I always get excited when I see this. Thank you everyone for joining us. I'll give it just a moment, let everyone kind of get in the door and then we'll get started. It's summer outside, Terry.
yes, I
It's
know.
really summer. I have been so enjoyed this past weekend, just working in the yard and oh, it's been
It's
wonderful.
been beautiful to be
Very
outside.
much enjoyed it. Well, just we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Candace Swick. If I haven't met you, I'm the marketing director here at Westminster Village in West Lafayette. And I have a special guest here with me today,
Thank you.
someone that I consider a friend and also a resident here at Westminster Village. This is Mr. Terry Phillips. Him and his wife, Lynn, have lived here for how many years now?
Almost 5.
Almost 5
5
years.
this October.
You two were one of the first couples I met when I came here. And
really?
yes, I remember
Oh.
just exploring. I was
Yeah,
upstairs
I remember that.
on the living room floor where your home is. And we just started talking. And I just felt like I told my husband that it confirmed for me that I found a home. So
That's good.
I was really
Welcome
happy.
home.
Yes, thank you. So we're back with this, I think a really important, kind of a short series, a 3-parter, and then we're going to do some fun stuff for the summer. But we have a topic that we think is pretty vital to bring to you. And it's not just myself. Actually, Terry came to me with this and said, I think we need to talk about this. And you had written a paper about it. I said, yeah, I think that's really important. So earlier in the spring, we did a series on the 8 dimensions of wellness. And you pointed out that there is a 9th dimension. It's not something that we specifically cater to here at the village, but there is a 9th dimension. And that is financial, the financial dimension. And I said, well, that absolutely makes sense, because if your finances are healthy, it really does affect your stress levels and all of the other things coming together. And so the more we talked about it, Terry's like, well, I've written a white paper, which you do. You tend to write different things and share them with the world. And I said, well, I'd love to see it. And so the white paper is on, once you retire, what happens after that, and actually moving to a retirement community and managing all those aspects financially. And I said, I think this would make a great village chat series. And so we got working on it and we've put this together. And so here we are. And you're going to help kind of answer questions for folks planning to come in and share some of your insights. I would like to share that Terry is actually a financial planner. That is something you did pre-retirement, but you continue to help and do things like that. And there is a group of residents that meet monthly. Am I correct? It's the financial discussion group. We also have, joining us in 2 weeks will be Jane Smith, and she is on our board of directors. She is a resident and she serves on the financial committee. So I'm looking forward to that. Next week, we will host a panel with some of you in that discussion group, so that'll be your chance as viewers to get your questions in and ask whatever you want to ask, and let these gentlemen, as I believe it's all gentlemen next week, share with you their insights and answer your questions. So I'm looking forward to that. Before we get started I have a list of questions for you and talking about this paper you wrote. I wanted to clarify what Westminster Village is. So we thought that would be a good opening, that we needed to discuss that. We are a life plan community. A life plan community is one where you'll hear people say, oh, there's a buy-in. And so you might call it a buy-in, but it's actually a life occupancy fee. And so for short, you'll hear us say LOF. And that life occupancy fee that you pay when you move in, it's a one-time fee, guarantees you the right to live at the village and move through the continuum of care offered here for the remainder of your life, or as long as you stay at the village. It is similar in pricing to buying a home. It is based on the square footage of the home you choose here at Westminster Village. The difference is, depending on which contract you choose, the most popular one being an 80% refundable occupancy. That means to you that when you leave or pass from the village, 80% of that fee you paid goes back to you or your estate. So essentially, the village is only keeping 20% of that. So for instance, if you paid a life occupancy fee, I'm going to keep it simple because I don't do math. If you paid a life occupancy fee of, say, $200,000, then 40,000 stays with the village, 160 goes back to your estate. The other thing, now here's the part where I get really excited about Westminster Village that is unique. There are a few other communities I know in the Midwest and around the country who do this, but it's just not common because of how we were established by our founding board members who were residents back in 1970s. We have a promise and a way to provide any resident who outlives their funds a means to stay at the village. And that life occupancy fee is part of that. So if someone outlives their funds and what happens is the village will actually spend down that 80% that's in reserve for them. If that runs out, then the Westminster Foundation kicks in. That is run by the residents as well. It has a really good endowment that they manage and add to yearly. And so I think that's the really important part. I almost feel like the life occupancy fee at Westminster Village is similar to buying in an insurance policy. Late in life, if you don't need it, wonderful. That money goes back to you. But if you do need it, that is just a great news because I've seen the results of what happens when families run out of funds.
It provides some comfort to
Yes,
the residents.
I would think it provides comfort to me.
And the residents
Yeah,
do help contribute to the
Yes.
foundation to make this happen. So
we all do. I love the like the fall bazaar is probably a big one. The flea market. I'm a regular shopper. I contribute my funds and I get good stuff in return.
and the residents council.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing about Westminster Village that it really was a part of one of the big deciding factors when they approached me to come work here and why I said, yes, it was part of it because I felt like there was something lacking.
It adds to the
And
package.
yes, it does. I mean, in as far as the general field of what we do here, that part was so hard for me. And to see that some place had figured it out what to do, I was like, wow, I want to be a part of that. So anyways, so we thought it'd be a good idea to start off with explaining what we are and how we operate with that life occupancy fee. There is another option, the traditional life occupancy fee. It is a lower buy-in amount, but it does dissipate 2% over month. So after 48 months or 4 years, there would not be a refund left, but you do pay a lower amount to come in. So some people choose that option. So let's jump into the nitty gritty here.
Okay.
So we've already touched on this a little bit, but do you have anything else to add about yourself and Lynn? And you've lived here for 5 years now. What did you do before coming to the village? I know we mentioned you're a financial planner.
Well, I retired in 2000, so I've been retired for 22 years now. The first 5 years I spent as a financial planner, sort of the end of my last job and the beginning of a new job. After that, I volunteered a lot in the community. And my wife and I continued to live near here, about a mile. I actually rode my bicycle to move in. I didn't bring all my furniture with me, but I did ride my bicycle to get here. And I continue to discuss financial things where people need help if they need help.
Mhm.
And that's why we have a financial discussion group. I had one where I moved from and I missed it.
Yeah. And so you started it up here.
Right.
I haven't, so I'm not a resident, so I don't get to sit in on that financial discussion group, but I've been just really blessed to have some of the advice that you've given me. And
Well, thank
those
you.
takeaways, so I've appreciated that. When you decided to move to Westminster Village, what did you take into consideration financially? I mean, what were some of the things you considered from the financial perspective?
Well, mostly I considered and all the residents here want to pay for themselves for the rest of their life.
Mhm.
We generally move in for the rest of our life also. So
Mhm.
we're connected in that way.
Right.
We both have the same goal.
Yeah.
And I looked at what the costs were and came up with a way of planning. And that way of planning was very complex. I actually did a plan that went all the way back to 1873
Oh,
to
my.
see what would happen each year.
Wow.
And it told me that I could probably afford to move in here. I did that, by the way, in preparation for the financial planning, so that I would have background for everybody, not just myself.
Right. That
But
makes sense.
it was helpful to me. And I did mostly financial planning for people who were at Purdue, who had a pretty good retirement plan, but they had to manage part of it themselves or
Mhm.
know how it was being managed.
Mhm.
And that's why I think that the financial aspect is worth looking after for your wellness and
Right.
good to consider as part of
Right.
your wellness.
What were the things you actually looked at, the, I guess nuts and bolts, so to speak? Just
Well,
how much you had, or how did you go about that besides making that plan?
back then I looked at the many ways, and in our financial discussion group, not here, but in the last one I was in, I found there are many ways to do your financial planning. And if you work at it, you will probably have enough to do what you want to do and what you set out to do. My plan is a very overall looking plan. I don't
Mhm.
buy a stock here and a stock there and
Mhm.
that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. I just look at what's happening to the markets, how they go up and down,
Mhm.
and how that's going to affect me. And as a matter of fact, as a result of our discussion, somewhere in that time period, I wrote a new retirement plan program, and it's much easier now that I only have maybe 10 or 15 years to go. Then I was doing it for 30 or 40 years.
Right.
So this one only has 5 variables.
Well, that's kind of helpful. Is there anything, so you put together this plan, and and this is something that we can actually share with anyone watching. If you want, I can send it out with the recording so you can follow along. But you put together what it would look like. And this was a 20-year plan.
A
You did
40-year
yeah.
plan.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. 22 to 61, sorry, 40-year plan. And so this is what that looks like for 40 years, taking us from where you would start at, where you would end, considering from age 62 if you went to 101. Wow, I hope I lived that long. Oh my. And so you took
Well, you
us
have to
through,
plan on it.
right. I mean, you took us through what happens with inflation and what happens with the expenses, and considering all of expenses of living in a retirement home. One thing we have here now, when someone moves in, you turn in a financial application. That application is actually put into a type of Performa program software that qualifies that person to see, do you have enough funds to realistically sustain your monthly fees and living at the village. We know we have that guarantee, and that would be worst case scenario. But do we, in general, have enough funds based on what we know? We have since in the last year added a tool that we can share with incoming residents. It's called Money Gauge. And I can take, or we can take their information, we can sit down with them, it's online. We basically enter in all of the assets, all of the expenses. If there's any long-term long-term healthcare insurance, any of those things, any liabilities, and it spits out. And then we'd say, okay, we're moving to Westminster Village, or it could be any retirement community, but we're moving to Westminster Village on said year. And this is our entrance fee. And these are our average monthly fees. And it spits out that pro forma, and it shows you, this is where you are now, this is where you'll end up. And so that you can see, can I afford, that home? Can I afford? And what I found interesting is a lot of times, and you can do comparisons. So I can leave you at home and we can run it that way, or I can leave you here. And I found that a lot of times that money came in even, because there's actually additional expenses living at home with healthcare. The costs that can incur that are average, that you can, based on percentages and what happens out there in the world, we know that on average, people will need a certain amount of this or this or this. I found that really interesting. So that is a service we offer now, and someone can come into our offices and we can run that with them.
And the service was not the same
No, it wasn't.
now
No.
as it was when I came in. I don't remember exactly when they ran my plan.
Mhm.
I think it was before the day I moved in, but it was that plan that convinced me that I could move here. I wasn't as confident as
Right.
Westminster was, and I looked at that plan and I said, well, this is different what I do, but they have more experience, and that made a big difference to
Yeah.
me.
Well, and I think for me, it's comforting because you can look at that and see it in black and white.
It
Anyways.
also makes a difference now that we're entering a lot of inflation and
Yeah.
questions about the future, because we now know two things. We know that Westminster Village has done their planning.
Mhm.
We know that we have done our planning, and therefore the chances of success go through the roof.
Right. And there is inflation, and that is part of when you're making your plan. You do have to plan for every year. There's an increase based on cost of living. This year, it happens to be higher. The board came together, the financial committee worked really hard, and I know it wasn't easy, but the cost of inflation and the cost of operating has really gone up. And so we had to have a way to offset that.
That's right.
So that was something that happened this year that starts in our new fiscal year starts July 1. So that's something that finance committee does, is they have to look at those things. Is there anything looking back at now prior to moving in, is when it came to how you planned out your finances, that you would do differently?
Not a lot I would do differently. However, it is easier now than it was then.
Mhm. Now you know more.
Right.
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 What would be a factor? What do you think is the most important factor to consider when you're deciding to move to a life plan community? What would be the most important factor there?
Well, that would take a little more time to explain, but this plan that I wrote here is just for paying your own expenses for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
And making sure that you have enough to cover yourself and your spouse or whoever you're with.
Mhm.
There are other goals, and I'm not going to talk about the other
Sure.
goals. You have to do those separately. But I think knowing that you can pay your expenses is very comforting and to some extent part of your healing
Yeah,
as you grow older.
yeah.
And we do grow older.
I think something that's beneficial for residents coming in is there is a wide variety of financial, I guess, cost here. So like someone who's moving into a 1 bedroom, for instance, if they were doing that 80% plan, that's $118,000 this year. But someone moving into one of our largest hybrids is like $400,000. So there's this wide range. And there's a range in those monthly fees. And so I love that there is opportunity for different, all to come together and be able to enjoy the village. So it doesn't mean we have to have this many millions, we could have this much. And we can show through the performas that, okay, yes, you'll be fine, given what is your age now and so forth. Do you have any advice for those who are, what about, and this question is kind of, so a lot of folks might be watching us are already planning, they're either retired or almost there, or they're planning this move to a retirement community. So I have two questions. One, why do you think a life plan community such as ours would be more valuable to someone versus, say, just going into buying a home outright in a 55 or older community?
Well, I believe in community.
Mhm.
And this is a community, and it really emphasizes it is a community. But there's not strings attached to
Mhm.
living here. You can take the community and take full advantage of it, or you can do whatever you want to do
Mhm.
to live in the community. But I think the community provides much more capability to take care of each other. That's the most important thing to myself and my wife, is being able to take care of each other. And we'll do that until we can't do it anymore. And we hope that the community will do
Right.
that for us when
Well,
we
and
get to
that's-
that point. And we
that's-
think that that's going to happen.
That's the part of that life plan community
That's
versus
right.
just a regular.
That's why we have 8.
Right, versus just a regular retirement community. A life plan community has care.
Right,
So your decisions are already made.
right,
You're not scrambling down the road. If something happens to you health-wise, where am I going to go? What's going to happen? Where do I go to rehab? If I need, how do I get it? We're here, it's built in. And you have a team of people who know you already.
and that's what I'm finding.
Right. And so that's I think the value there versus we could buy a home outright in a retirement community and we could have the friendships and the neighbors, but you're going to miss that long-term care part. And there, you still potentially could have another move in life.
Right,
Where here, you're done.
right.
We're here, we're home. So I think that's, would you say that that's
I agree
accurate?
with you.
Yeah. Now, so we talked about this, you and I. So say for someone who we're still in our 50s, we are about 10 years out from that retirement point. What do you have? What advice do you have for us where we're a little bit ahead of that? We're not retired yet. We're getting there. What advice do you have for us?
To make sure you understand from a financial point of view, make sure you understand your finances and how they work.
Do you have a certain dollar amount that you think someone needs to get to? Or how do
No,
you figure that out?
I have a method of doing that. And by the way, I wasn't just a financial planner, I was a NAFTA financial planner, and the NAFTA
Wow.
financial planner were fee-only people. And there's a lot of fee-only people out there, but every convention I went to was very concerned about the people and how the people were and how they were faring. And that's what attracted me to be that kind of a financial planner.
Interesting.
And
I
that
didn't know that.
also is similar in my eyes to what Westminster Village is.
Mhm. I think that's really interesting. Um, do you have any regrets? Last question before we'll open it up to questions, and I'm watching our time and realizing that we've
No.
talked quite a bit. Any regrets about choosing a life plan community?
No, we have a life.
Yeah.
We have a life. We don't have regrets.
And I know you've said to me just the peace of mind
Yes,
about, you paid your entrance fee, and that fee guarantees your care if your health declines
right.
and you need it. So
And it will.
thank you for sharing with us, Terry. Terry has put together his retirement plan. It's just a 2-page, pretty simple. And I will actually include this when I send out the recording to people so that they can be able to know what's happening or go along with what you were talking about too. So I think that might be helpful to people. Well, I was looking to see for Stephanie, but I think we might have had some technical difficulties. I don't see her on here. But anyways, I will go ahead and share her part with us. So be sure, if you have any questions, get them in there now, and we'll go ahead and answer those questions after I share some upcoming things with us. July 9th coming up is our next drive-through fundraiser, but you've seen this, right? It's going to be different. We are doing a barbecue, and you may not know this, but my husband he's retired, and his passion is smoking meats. And
Oh my
he's
gosh.
gone around and won awards, and he just loves to do it. So he has volunteered to come smoke all the pulled pork. And the kitchen, our culinary experts in there are going to be making some wonderful side dishes. And so this will be, you can pull through, pick up a barbecue meal to go, or we'll be out front by the fountain. You can park, pick up your meal, and eat picnic style, and we will have music going, and you can buy drinks. And all of the funds this time go to the honor flights of Greater Lafayette. So they had not been able to operate there for a few years, but they are back in operation. They just took their first honor flight, and they are up and running again. And we are really excited to be able to support the veterans being able to go on honor flights. So,
And if you picnic, you can meet people here.
yeah,
I
that's
suspect.
true. You can meet people here. Yes, because we have more orders so far than we've ever had at this point. So for any of our fundraisers, so we are really, really excited. It's just a great cause. I've had the pleasure of meeting a number of gentlemen over the years who have been on honor flights and hearing what it meant to them. So I'm just really excited to be able to help raise funds for our local veterans to be able to go on honor flights. So that'll be really fun. Next week, we will have a panel. So get your questions ready. We want to hear from you. You can email them into me ahead of time. You can respond to the email I send out later today. And with specific questions, like, what do you want to know? Don't be afraid to get into the nitty gritty. We want to hear it, and we hope to be able to answer those for you. Anything else you want to add before we go, Terry?
No, I'm very happy with our discussion.
Good. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Have a wonderful week. It's a beautiful day. I hope you get out there and get some sunshine. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.